sometimes events conspire through coincidence or synchronicity or whatever you want to call it to make you think about certain subjects more than you might normally do. And that's been the case with homelessness and poverty for me the last few days. Going into Andover, which I hadn't done for quite some time over the weekend, and seeing how many shops were shut and shuttered, how just summing up everything for me was the fact that Marks and Spencer, which had been a fixture of the town for as long as I've been alive, is gone, and in its place there was a homeless person with a shopping trolley full of junk and a pop tent. That sometimes things just sum up the state of affairs, and that was the case for me. And then on Monday, on Fuck This Gay Earth, I reacted to a news story about how the government is throwing £100 million at the homelessness problem in England. They were estimating only 5,000 people homeless, or more specifically rough sleepers. I'll get to that in a bit, which seems to be lowballing the estimate, and even with the amount they said it was going to be over a number of years and divided by that many people, it's not really enough to do much of anything. It's not really tackling the root causes. And then talking throughout the day with various people on opposite sides of the political divide to me, people very much on the right, full of the kind of bootstraps thinking, and the exceptions and kind of special treatment they were giving me because they know me about my situation. So I've been thinking about these things a lot. There's a lot of new people on the channel, so I'm going to have to retread a couple of things, but I'll give you the kind of Cliff Notes version, I guess. So I worked for a tech-oriented company during the dot-com bubble, and when that eventually burst, or sometime after it, I lost my job. So I'd moved from tech support for a specific product, I'm not really that technical, to kind of web design and graphics work, and then the bubble burst. Various other things assailed the company that I was working for, including embezzlement. And as a result of those things combined, I lost my job and I was out of work for a protracted period, I think 18 months, before I decided to set out and be self-employed full-time. In that period, I was technically homeless, at least as far as the government statistics are concerned. Not out on the street, which is what most of us tend to think of when we think of homeless, but staying with family in accommodation that I had no legal right to stay in. You know, I could have been thrown out at whatever notice. That's the government's definition of homelessness, whereas rough sleeping is their definition when you are actually out on the street. So yeah, you can have people in sheltered accommodation and so on. They're homeless but not rough sleeping. So I've been poor and I've been homeless, and I have mental health issues, which a lot of people out on the street do, and I'm getting government assistance because of the severity of my mental illness. You don't get to see much of it. You get to see the good side of me for the most part, but I suffer from severe, ongoing, it's going to be lifelong now, depression and anxiety issues. It's not nice, it's not pleasant. I do need the help, I do find things difficult, and the stress of being self-employed intermingles with that stuff in some ways that are not good. So that's my story in a nutshell, and why you might see that I resonate with these stories quite so much, because just a few things would have had to have been different, and you know, that could be me on the street. Very, very much so. Now, homelessness encompasses a lot of the things that really do concern me quite a lot. Mental health issues, which I try to be an advocate for, and I try to be open about my own issues to try and take some of the stigma out and so on. Men's issues. The overwhelming majority of people who are homeless, 80% I think, are men, and there are a number of reasons for this. People tend to concentrate on how men tend to succeed really well in society, failing to understand that there are vastly more people who fail. Men as a demographic tend to take more risks, and that can either pay big or it can fuck you over for life. Family courts and so on, child support payments mean that single men, especially if they've been married, are often in a life that is much more precarious and on the edge. Men's mental health issues aren't tackled with the same verve and vigour and the kind of specific care that they need, and all of these things combine to make men more likely to be homeless and to have mental illness and to be impoverished, and so that's why they're overrepresented in the homeless populations. This is a whole bunch of different things that I in particular am interested in. Men's issues, mental health, poverty, and the lack of social investment, because I'm an old school lefty in that regard. Now, a lot of people who don't agree with me on political and economic matters make an exception when it comes to me. The fact that I am getting government assistance, the fact that I've been poor, but because they have this personal connection to me, they're willing to let it slide in a way that they aren't for people that they haven't met. That empathetic personal connection means that they can say, well, you're an entrepreneur, you run a business, you do everything you can to better your lot, and so on. So they don't resent quite so much that I am getting help of some kind. Well, when I was out of work for 18 months, because there just wasn't anything there, I was either overqualified or underqualified, or the jobs just weren't there, or there was so much competition for them that, a dirty hippie wasn't their first choice, should put it that way. So after a year of this, of going into the job centre and signing on and explaining all the ways you've looked for work over and over again, they put me in this program that was supposed to help you find work, and it was all utterly basic shit. How to write a CV, how to use Word. They gave people access to computers and printers. It wasn't really of any use to anyone who was on this course with me. I knew it all already. I'd already been doing all of this stuff, and I ended up part teaching the class for some of the people. So there were either people in the same situation as me, overeducated for the job market, other issues, or people who were just high on drugs all the time, or alcoholics, people who needed medical intervention and assistance, not help writing a CV or spelling or whatever else, because one guy brought a knife to the meeting, and that was fun. Police had to be called, he had to be taken away, and I don't know what happened to him. He never came back. But spending all that time at the job centre and in these programs, and spending all this time struggling to get this government assistance that I have finally got, I have mingled with and met and spent time with the people who often get blamed for all of society's ills, who get told that they're skivers rather than strivers, And some people just don't fit education and get left behind. Some people have drug problems or drink problems. A lot of people just have had bad luck, bad circumstances, and that's it. Most people on job seekers allowance, on the dole, or on support for mental health reasons or physical health problems, most people like that are like me, right? They want to better their lot. They do everything they can to better their lot. They don't like being on assistance of whatever kind, but they know that they need to, and they all feel this immense societal pressure and judgment, which can often make their problems worse. We have to change this culture of thinking that anyone who gets money for being jobless, or gets money for being mentally ill or physically ill. We've got to kill this idea that they are somehow cheating the system or getting something that they don't deserve, because there's some, but for the majority, they're like me. They're just trying to make the best of a bad situation and get themselves out of that hole, and they wouldn't be going for the assistance if they didn't need it. And this is an old statistic, but going after welfare fraud in the UK has, at least in the past, I haven't checked the more modern statistics, but it has cost more to pursue benefit frauds and cheats than has actually been lost through fraud. So we would have been better off not pursuing this at all, at least not specifically pursuing it. We would have saved more money, but it plays well to the public's prejudices and judgments and suspicions to spend a lot of time going after skivers, to make it harder to get help. It plays well to that, despite the reality of the matter, and that's kind of sad, really. And if you're a fiscal conservative, that should worry and even shock you. I don't want to spend too much longer on this, because it's a heavy topic, and also you motherfuckers have the attention span of gnats and rarely watch the longer videos that I put out, however much the algorithm likes them. But there's just one last thing I want to touch on. If you've not been poor, if you've not been living hand to mouth, it can be hard to understand the behaviours of people who have been living like that. So having been in that situation for protracted periods, I just want to kind of try and explain to you a bit of how things happen. So a lot of people get judged and even hated for what they spend their welfare money on. You know, if you're not spending it on the bare essentials to live, if you're not living an ascetic monk-like life on welfare, people begin to judge you. Yeah, oh, you can afford a mobile phone and a flat screen TV and a blah 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 blah. Those kind of things, those big permanent fixtures, they might be expensive, but they're things that can add a great deal of value and comfort to your life compared to the overall cost. So it might seem shocking or wrong to you somehow that someone spends their money on what can seem like fripperies. But these are things that can have an immeasurably positive impact on people's mental health, their life, their leisure time, and so on. And if you're shut in because you are physically or mentally unwell, or because you've been out of employment for a long time, you know, things like a big TV or a home cinema or satellite TV or fast internet or whatever, these things can make a huge difference to your life. And another aspect that people often overlook is that benefits often get stopped, sometimes on spurious reasons. And so you can be, you know, living on scraps and rice and beans or pot noodles or ramen or whatever for months at a time while you're waiting for your money to get started again. And then you get it all in a big lump sum. So you've been basically living at below subsistence level for months, and you suddenly get this big whack of money. And suddenly you can potentially afford something that you couldn't afford before, like the TV, like the PlayStation, like, you know, any of these big upfront costs. So you might grasp that opportunity to spend this excess of money that you suddenly have, to spend them on a lump sum on something that will really improve your life and make things better for you. Now, the money that I've been getting, a lot of it has gone on things that we've been waiting to fix around the house and so on. I'm trying to take whatever spare of that money I can and reinvest it into my business to make that more sustainable, to get me off the benefit to the point where I don't need it. A lot of other people will do it the same way. But the other thing that it has allowed me to do is to buy things that I enjoy, without having to justify them as a work expense or a necessity or something. And that has had a big positive effect on my mental health. I can buy an old piece of clothing that takes my fancy, or a bit of jewellery, or a game that I otherwise wouldn't have paid for, you know, because I couldn't justify the expense. All sorts of things like this, and that has a really big positive impact on someone. So if you're going to judge people for spending their welfare money on things, just keep these kind of things in mind, consider them, and think how you would act in that position. Really act in that position. And there is the downside to that though as well. When you're getting that money, you do feel the pressure of expectation and demand and judgment coming from society as a whole, especially if anyone you know reads the Daily Mail or the Daily Express. So just if you've got empathy for me, because I'm here, I'm visible, and I talk about this stuff, remember that most people, even though they might not be as articulate or educated or whatever else as I am, most people in these situations are just like me. They're just trying to make the best of a bad situation and doing whatever they can to make their lives that little bit better. So if you can find empathy in your heart for me, you can find it for them. Zang.
Your habits, your fads, your fears. Give us your address, your shoe size, your years, your digits, your plans, your number, your eyes, your schedule, your desktop, your details.
This is horrible what happened today. See, I don't like I have, okay, like a lot of you, I hate a lot, you know? But I hate with style and creativity.